This week I'm reviewing the 2025 Nissan Z. I haven't driven it in a couple years, but is it still my pick over something like the Toyota Supra or the Ford Mustang with the V8? Let's get into it. And make sure to stay to the end because we're going to look for deals on the Nissan Z at the end of this video. And then we're also going to put it on the spreadsheet compared to other sports cars that I've also driven so far in 2025. Nissan Zs have always had 6 cylinders. Inline 6s back in the day. Twin turbo V6 is what we're graced with now after a few generations of naturally aspirated V6s. We had some boosted V6s with the 300 ZX, or should I say the second gen 300 ZX, but then they went naturally aspirated until they brought the Z back just a couple years ago. So we have a 3-liter twin turbo V6 producing 400 horsepower, 350 pound-feet of torque. This has a manual transmission. You can get a 9-speed if you prefer. The Nismo variant, which has 420 horsepower and a little bit more torque than this, only comes with the 9-speed auto. I actually like this more than the Nismo. And speaking of that Nismo variant, I think it does look better than the standard Z or the Performance Z that we have here. However, this still looks good. I think the iconic, classically styled headlights look great. We have what Nissan calls the Z bulge up top. These oval grille pieces do match the rear taillights quite nicely. These 19-inch wheels on the performance grade are forged raised wheels. I love how they look, especially with this red Nissan caliper. The side profile of the Z, well, it's iconic with the long fastback sloping roofline here. We have the katana inspired trim piece at the top. Some people think it's cheesy. I kind of dig that sort of thing. And then the historic Z badge here on what you would call the blind spot area of the Z coupe. As we come to the back of the Z, look at these taillights. They remind you of the second gen 300 ZX. The dual tip exhaust looks great. The Z badge across there. I love the retro looks here on the back of the Nissan Z. And in true liftback style, you could fit some really weird shaped things in here. However, it is very shallow, but the thickness of this carpet, even in the cargo bay area, matches the thickness. Feels like it's about an inch thick of carpet. It just feels very old school, very quality. And you see that in the front seats as well. You're only going to find a fix-it flat kit down at the bottom where it's nestled against the Bose subwoofer. Look at these beautiful Z cases. First aid kit, cargo net, and they're both Velcro. On the inside of the Z, I love that the vents for my face are, well, of course, centrally located, but you also have it here on the door as well. We do have blind spot monitor next to that vent on the inside, and we have the beautiful iconic PSI gauge. You have the turbo speed gauge, and then also the battery voltage sitting right here on the dash. It's super refreshing because almost everything nowadays is so digital. This car feels very old, and I think that's one of the more alluring aspects to it. I do have a bright 12-inch screen here, but we'll get more into that when we start driving. The climate control is fantastic. The AC is nice and cold. I do have heated seats, these blue seats, and this is a weird spec. This blue, which is new for 2025, it carries over from the GT-R. This blue, when I try to configure it online, cannot be configured with the blue seat. So I essentially have like the Papa Smurf edition in here. But let's stop talking about this car on the inside and let's start driving it. When you're driving a sport coupe, you want to feel stuck in place because, well, I don't have turns in Florida, but assuming you have turns where you live, these seats are going to really hold you snug. The bolstering is very, very supportive. I sit up really high in this vehicle, even though I twisted it down. Yes, you still have some manual seat controls for raising and lowering, tilting the lower cushion. You can still slide with electric power forward and back, and then tilt the cushion, the top cushion, forward and back as well. But I still feel really big in this vehicle. The digital rearview mirror, so it's not digital, it's auto dimming rearview mirror. It is massive. I wish it was a little bit smaller in here because it takes up a lot of room and it takes up a lot of my vision as well. So like the visibility in here might be the biggest knock against the Nissan Z. Like the sloping roofline creates some really gnarly blind spots. Luckily, blind spot monitor is standard, so that kind of helps when you can't see over your shoulder, either one. All right, let's get in front of traffic. You lose a little traffic, or traffic. You lose a little traction even in second gear. It's still trying to put down all that power. And you know, even though the Nismo, for example, has more power, it does a better job of putting down that power because it has much more aggressive tire compound on there. And it has even, I think, lighter wheels. Well, good thing I wasn't going too fast. There's the Popo. The Popo will always get you, and that's why, like, I'm kind of happy I don't own a super fast, and this isn't that fast of a car, but it makes you want to go fast in it because it is so fun to wring this engine out. And it is fun to roll through the gearbox. The gearbox here on this performance model does have auto rev matching downshifts, which are fantastic. The engine sounds good here. I just wish I had more of it. I get a little bit of exhaust. It feels like it's a good mix between engine and exhaust note, but I know if I were to own this vehicle, I'd be modifying the exhaust to hear this. Also, what's a little bit better here, but still not great compared to the Nismo, is that it has quite a bit of road noise and harshness coming through this vehicle. And in that regard, it does feel like an older car. Yes, it's brand new, but it has the same bones of the previous Z underneath, the 370Z. All right, so, you know, ride quality is actually pretty good. It's just you get a lot of jitteriness through the wheels, and that's not going to bother a lot of people. And it looks like we might be heading into a rainstorm. All right, so the shifter in here is really mechanical feeling. You feel tons of vibrations through it. I just got done driving. Yeah, the SI, it's so refined that you don't feel any engine vibes through the shifter. Here you feel them all the time, which I absolutely really appreciate. You feel more connected to the engine. Sometimes you can't hear the engine. I can't hear the engine right now, but I can feel the engine's vibrations through the shifter. And it's great. I really like that aspect to it. The Mazda Miata is kind of raw in that regard as well. I do have different screens here. The one I prefer the most is Sport mode because it pops up this awesome Z gauge. Normal is also pretty good because it gives you a good tachometer. All right, this one is obviously the best looking, but it does not give me fuel economy. And you might be saying, Kirk, you're not buying this car for fuel economy. I agree. I know it's just a small gripe. Ooh, you know what? Let's take the outside lane here. Let's sling. We might lose a camera. Oh yeah. The only turns I have in Florida are green arrows, essentially, or on-ramps to the interstate. So it was fun taking that at speed. And when you're accelerating out of first gear, the power comes on heavy and fast. It's not the most linear. I feel like around 3,000 RPM, it just comes in the full force of its power and torque. And you're gonna ride it all the way to that 7,000 RPM, which is just, it's great to have such a high revving engine here. I haven't driven a lot of manual Mustangs recently, so I can't compare too much to those. I have driven the automatic Dark Horse, which I really didn't enjoy. It sounded good, but I would rather have had the manual with the review vehicle that I tested there. The Supra is a smoother, more refined experience, honestly, but this is actually a little bit easier to hustle through the gears if you want to. Like there's a lot less rev hang here compared to the first to second gear drop on the Supra manual. Both are fun as heck to drive. The Supra feels faster. It feels a little bit more wild. I don't know exactly why. Maybe the wheelbase is a tad shorter. I'm not quite sure. But it feels a little bit more squirrely in the rear. Maybe it's because the power is less linear. And I know it's not the most linear here, but the power on the Supra, like, it gives you gobs and gobs of torque. And that engine, even though like on paper it's down to this, it feels like it has significantly more power and torque than this setup here in the Z. Doesn't mean the Z's slow. As I almost got beat off the line, I started losing traction there. And that's something I'm still getting used to, because what happens is that the engine does like to, I feel like, over rev, or it's definitely user error. and I'm still getting used to it. What do I mean by that? Well, when you're trying to shift through the gears, in this vehicle, it really prefers you to get off the gas maybe a half tick early or a quarter of a second early. Otherwise, it's going to over rev between gears, and your rev match on the upshifts isn't going to be that great. So you really have to get out the gas a little bit early on the Z here when you're upshifting. I'll try to demonstrate here. Yeah, that was much better with the rev matching on the upshifts because I was focusing on cutting the gas a little bit earlier than I'm used to compared to other manuals. So I don't know why, if it's just specific to this car or what, but yeah, you guys, that's just one of the things you're gonna have to learn with the character of this car. And it has tons of character, like I mentioned, all right? I feel like I'm with more of a wild animal in here compared to the Supra in some ways. I know the back end wants to step out a little bit more on the Supra, and the V8 on the Mustangs just sounds amazing, but this does feel a little bit more raw than the competitors in quite a few ways. All right, again, I got a green light here. Auto rev matches are fantastic. The steering's a little light for my liking, but you know what? That's all right. Oh, sounds great. So much power, honestly. Oh, I also love the air conditioning in here. Old school rotary dials, very simple. The touchscreen is not overly huge or anything. I really enjoyed this interior, the character, the quality, the leather, the stitching. It's so much better than the Supra in my opinion. And I like it a lot better than the Mustang. The Mustang feels very cheap, even in the Dark Horse. This feels like a much more luxurious interior compared to its direct competition. And I really, really am happy from a tech perspective, just the right amount of tech, but also from an analog perspective with the dials, the manual. And one of the most important things for me having a manual is having this analog parking brake where I can just rip it. It's close to the driver. It's not like an electronic parking brake like you see on most modern manuals. It's fantastic to have this old school parking brake here, and that to me earns a lot of points compared to its competition. I don't remember, I think the Mustang is electronic now. I think the Supra is as well. I mean, all of Hondas are electronic parking brake. I know that like the Miata, for example, has a traditional. I think the GR86 has a traditional pull handle too. They're just few and far between nowadays. So this gets a lot of points for me on the Z with the pull handle here for the emergency brake. Also, the sound system, the 8-speaker Bose, which I believe is standard across the lineup, it's pretty solid. I have no complaints with it. It gets plenty loud in this small cabin, and it's definitely adequate for this price of vehicle. But let's get in the office, look at the competition. How do I like this compared to the Supra, the Mustang? What kind of deals can you find? And let's put it on the spreadsheet and rank it. Looking at Z's in my area, you can actually get the sports for not that much money. All right, so if I go to trim level, there's 13 sports. If we see what the sports are at, you can get them for under 40K, which is that's like $5,000 under MSRP. The reason I would not be going with the sport personally, it doesn't have the limited slip diff and it doesn't have the raised wheels. All right. So I'd be going for the performance trim. And it doesn't, I mean, I guess it costs about 10 grand more, but I think it's worth it. And look, we're seeing price drops on Z performance models. 48K for this looks like a white. I think white with the black top is new for 2025. The blue is awesome. So like this is a great buy in my opinion. Under 50K for the performance variant of the Nissan Z. I only have the manuals selected. The automatic's good too. The automatic, if you get a screaming deal in one, maybe it's worth it. The auto is not quite as good as the Supra's auto. All right, the 8-speed ZF is crazy good. The 9-speed auto in here, which I believe was developed by Mercedes-Benz, and then Nissan is kind of using that technology and those patents. I could be wrong, but that's just what I remember. I think it's good. And if people don't care about, I mean, the manual is definitely going to be way slower than the auto. It's just that you just have way more connection with the car with the manual. It's more fun to drive. It's more engaging, more rewarding, all of that stuff. All right. So
great buy. What about the Supra? There are 0 Supras out there, guys. This is crazy. There are 0 Supras within 150 miles. It's done. They've stopped producing them. Like if I go 500 miles, there are none. So there are no more Supras left. I guess there's one in California. So Supras are no longer available. I think it's officially canceled at this point. All right, so let's see here. Supra is dead, at least the one made in Austria with BMW. Toyota will make their own Gen 6 coming up, Supra, Mark 6. The Mustang, great performance, love the V8 in it. I haven't driven it with a manual in this generation, so it's hard for me to say, but I would only be getting this with the V8 personally. And I would only be getting it with the manual. The automatic, of course, is fast. The 10-speed auto in here is fast. But I didn't have that much fun in the Dark Horse. And the Dark Horse was like $70,000 that I tested. So you can get a manual Mustang GT for $44K. Again, the Nissan Z is going to be about closer to $50K. So the Mustang GT is also more widely available. There are 77 manual GTs in my area, no Supras, and then they're less than half of the amount of Zs with the manual transmission, that is, of course. So Mustang GT, also a great buy. It's just, I think it's ugly. That's just my take. I prefer previous generation styling over this. The interior is cheap feeling compared to the Z. You're really buying this for that V8 experience, and it's worth it. All right. And I would love to have a V8 in the Z, but that's not the Z's nature. It's not the Z's heritage. So where does the Z fall? All right. Well, let's look at other performance cars I've driven this year. All right. Well, this is the Daytona is gorgeous, in my opinion, but no Hemi in it, at least for now, was a joke. I mean, it was fast, but it weighed like a gajillion pounds. It just was not the car I wanted it to be, the EV Daytona. Turbo 3 hatch, GR Corolla, they're well below. There's totally different performance grades, all right? Can I put it in the same ballpark as the Ioniq 5N or the CT5 V-Series Blackwing? Obviously, it's not a direct competitor to either of those, but did I have as much fun in the Nissan Z as I did with them? And the answer is probably not, but I like the looks of the Z better than both of those. And the Z feels just so unique. Honestly, I think the Z is S tier. I can't think of too many things that are frustrating about it. Boomy wheel noise, but it's fun to drive. It is engaging. It's iconic. It's classic. My buddy and his father-in-law came over the other day, and all he wanted to, like, not all he wanted to talk about, but he was really into the Z. He's like, show me it. Like, I want to know about this. He remembers the Zs from the 70s and the 80s, okay? If you like the looks of it, it's S tier, and I like the looks of the Z. Again, the Nismo looks better, but I don't like driving the Nismo. It's loud. It's, you know, you can hear it because the tires are so sticky. You hear the rocks getting kicked up all the time in the rear of the vehicle. So I'm going to put it below the CT5 Series Blackwing. But again, just a different era of performance. I like it better than the Supra. I like it better than the Mustang. Okay, there are things I like better in those cars, such as the V8 or just the smoothness of the inline six in the Supra, but the overall package, the inside and out quality, and just the character is there, and it feels definitely in line of its history compared to the Supra, which is, other than an inline six that Toyota didn't mainly develop, right? So it's like the Supra took this step away from its heritage. The Mustang at least still feels like a Mustang. The Z still feels like the Z. The Supra, well, there's so much time between Mark IV and Mark V that it became its own thing once again with the rebirth of the Supra. And it's just, you know, it didn't feel that special. It's a better performance car than the Z, but it doesn't feel like a car I would want to own as much as the Z. So with that being said, I love the Nissan Z, especially in the performance trim. I wouldn't be getting in the base because, again, you have the limited slip diff here, you have the lighter wheels, the better wheels, and it's just such a good car. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Let me know if you agree with me ranking it so high. It's not a perfect car. It is true to its character. It's true to its nature. And I really appreciate that about it. It feels special. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.